Before we moved to Decorah, we visited here years ago and stayed at a local bed and breakfast close by. And when my husband and I walked out in the evening from the bed and breakfast, we could hear toads singing here in town. And we were curious about where the sound of the toads was coming from. So we followed the sound and ended up here in the backyard of Porter House. And in this pond, toads were mating and producing the tadpoles that you see swimming around in the pond right now. So I've always had a warm spot in my heart for this pond for that reason. My name is Judy Linden. I am a volunteer in the gardens and also a docent in the museum proper.
And I am Peter Linden, and I help coordinate maintenance of the gardens. Well, working in the gardens is a good fit for me because I'm an avid landscape gardener and have been for many years. Also, I'm a professional botanist and enjoy propagating and growing native plants and fitting them into landscapes. So when we moved to Decorah 5 years ago and became familiar with Porter House, I was immediately impressed with the very nice naturalistic gardens that are here, which I think so artfully blend native and introduce plants, and so it's just been a good fit for me to volunteer. Here we have one of the ferns that's growing here in the gardens at Porter House. It's called lady fern, and it is native in the Decorah area. Here's another interesting native plant from the gardens at Porter House, and this is called Jack in the Pulpit. It has a flower in the springtime that is faded now, but you can see here the developing fruit, which when it's ripe, looks like an ear of corn, except that it's bright red.
And I was initially attracted to Porter House because of the historic home and the story of the Porters and their life here. And I came to appreciate the gardens after becoming a docent here, and so also got involved in the gardening as well. So these gardens at Porter House were developed over time. Some of the plants originated with the Porters when they lived here. Others were introduced or added to the garden after the Porters had both passed away and the Porter House became a museum in the late 1960s. Both Mr. and Mrs. Porter apparently enjoyed the yard and the gardens. Mr. Porter was a naturalist and admired wildflowers. So we believe that he probably dug up and transplanted many of the wildflowers that you see at the front of the house and on the west side of the house. The gardens also contain many old-fashioned flowers, which Mrs. Porter, I think, would have appreciated. Things like peonies, iris, and bridal's wreath. Mrs. Porter decorated indoors with dried hydrangea flower stems, and those probably came from the hydrangea shrub that's close to the front porch. One of the more unusual plants here at the garden is this one right behind me. You see the large leafed vine. It's called the Dutchman's pipe vine. The name Dutchman's pipe vine comes from the shape of the flowers. They look like a Dutchman's pipe. Dutchman's pipe vine is interesting in another way. It is the host plant for a butterfly called the pipevine swallowtail. And by host plant, I mean the caterpillars of that butterfly feed only on the leaves of this vine. So it follows that you would see pipevine swallowtails more frequently in the south, where these vines tend to grow. Mr. Porter was known to love and collect all kinds of butterflies, so it's possible that he acquired this vine because of its connection to the pipevine swallowtail. This summer, although the inside tours of the museum will probably not be happening, Visitors are still welcome to walk on the grounds. The grounds are open at all times, and see the plants and enjoy the flowers that Mr. and Mrs. Porter would have brought here.